Hi there, this is Ronin from Ronin Films, and welcome to another episode of In the Frame. Today I'm just going to talk about some films that are classics that I like, that I have in my collection, but I don't adore. Now obviously this is completely subjective. Everybody views films differently, and I'm sure there's plenty of classics that I do love and adore, but this is just a list of films that I like more than love. Now again, I'm not saying these are bad films. Again, I have them in my collection. I'm not going to get rid of them. I do enjoy watching them most of the time. But it's more just what is a classic. You know, there's films that are generally agreed upon as being classics, but it doesn't mean you actually have to adore them. You have a free will, apparently, in some countries. So I'm going to start with a couple that, because the shelves behind me aren't actually in order, which is really annoying until I get them shelved properly. Two that I couldn't put my hands on for this video. One is Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot. Now I'm a fan of Billy Wilder, but I'm not a huge fan of Some Like It Hot. Again, it has classic moments. It does bring up lots of undercurrents of sexuality and transvesticism, which isn't even a word. But it's just not one of my favourite Billy Wilders. It never has been. But obviously it is lauded as one of the greatest comedies of all time. It might have actually been voted on a poll that I saw at some point as the greatest comedy ever made. Which again, for me, it's not, but obviously lots of people absolutely love Some Like It Hot. And the other one is Cinema Paradiso by Giuseppe Tornatore, who at some point in the future I may do a director series on, because I do love a few of his films, especially The Legend of 1900. For me, The Legend of 1900 is exponentially better than Cinema Paradiso. Again, I have Cinema Paradiso, just can't put my hands on it. I do enjoy it. I think I rated it a 4 out of 5. But again, for me, it's just not as great. I just kind of like it and think it's very good, rather than it's a stone cold classic or anything like that. I think Tornatore's Legend of 1900 or Milena or Unknown Woman I prefer. I even prefer some of his smaller films or less well known films, rather than the big famous one because it got Oscar attention. Sticking in Italy, and Bicycle Thieves. Again, I like this film. Again, I think I give this 4 out of 5. And yes, it's an important film as far as Italian neorealism. But again, if you're familiar with the channel, my Italian film taste doesn't necessarily land with the big four, or however number you want to add after the word big. The De Sicas and the Fellinis and Antonionis. I prefer the Petri and the Rossi and the Petrangeli and Monicelli's. But again, Bicycle Thieves, get the importance. It is a lovely film. But again, it's one of those films like Seven Samurai, like Seven Seal, that if people who perhaps don't dig that deeply into non-English language films, it always appears on lists Still a good film though. Still happy to have it in the collection. It won't be going anywhere anytime soon. The next two, I mean, I know I'm going to upset people, but again, these are still good films. These are still very good films. They're just classics that I like rather than adore. So, two very colourful little musicals from France from 1964 and 1967. Jacques Demy's Umbrellas of Cherbourg and The Young Girls of Rochefort. These are from the Criterion Demy box set, and I do really love Donkey Skin and also the film Donkey Skin, and Bay of Angels with Jean Moreau. I think they're fantastic. But Umbrellas of Cherbourg and Young Girls of Rochefort, I just didn't connect with me at all. They're still good films, colourful, playful, but again, you know, I'm not averse to musicals. You know, it's not my favourite genre, but I guess the kind of story line in both films just don't really interest me that much. Yes, wonderful colour palette, and they may be what other people might call fun, but not for me. But again, everybody's different, and I'm certainly a bit different. Again, I think Umbrellas of Cherbourg tends to be on top 100 lists quite a lot. That's fine. Again, these are not bad films. I'm just saying I don't love them as much as the classics list do. Now again, this is not a statement, but King Hu films. I know a touch of film will shout at me, but I really like King Hu films, but I just don't see their Dragon Inn. Yes, I've still to watch Goodbye to Dragon Inn, which also isn't a King Hu film. So I have, well, the ones that are kind of readily available, I enjoy them. I really like A Touch of Zen. I enjoy all of them. But for me, they're a bit long. And I just don't see the greatness in them. Again, influential, I get. They are enjoyable. Do I want to watch them again as soon as I switch it off? Not really. Will I get rid of them? Certainly not. But again, I just don't see them as masterpieces or anything like that. But again, this is not a negative video. This is just pointing out we're all different. Next, it's a film, but it's more the filmmaker, and that's not what the video is about. But The Master by Paul Thomas Anderson, and again, pretty much every Paul Thomas Anderson film I've ever seen. I have liked and enjoyed every Paul Thomas Anderson film that I've seen. Do I love any of them? No. They are well written, well acted, well crafted. But again, for me, I just don't get excited by Paul Thomas Anderson films. I haven't seen Punch Drunk Love. I haven't seen his latest one, Licorice Pizza. But I've seen a fair number of them. And again, these are good films. But to me, I just don't think they are amazing. But again, this is just a bit of fun. Just a bit of fun. Next up, another classic. Alexander McKendrick's The Lady Killers. Again, I have this in 4K, so this is not a film that I hate. I enjoy The Lady Killers, but I much prefer, obviously, Sweet Smell of Success, but as far as Ealing comedies, I much prefer Man in the White Suit with Alec Guinness, Lavender Hill Mob. But again, Lady Killers is wonderful, great performances, obviously, by Alec Guinness. Again, Kind Hearts and Cornets is amazing too. But The Lady Killers for me is just a notch below things like Lavender Mob and Man in a White Suit. But again, I won't be getting rid of it. This is not a bad film. I don't know whether this is viewed as a classic or not, by Jacques Rivette's The Nun. Now, I love Nun films, but I don't really love this one. Again, I like it. It's a good film. Looks gorgeous. But it did just leave me a little bit nonplussed. The only reason I watched Lord of the Rings, or I got excited during Lord of the Rings, is when Gandalf says, "None shall pass," and I was waiting to see a nun, and of course Deborah Carr didn't turn up. But again, it's a good film. I just don't see the greatness, but I need to watch more Rivette. Obviously, I'm maybe not clever enough to appreciate all these films. Next, which I playfully put in as this director's worst film on a recent Ronin Nazarene Talks episode, F.W. Murnau's Sunrise. Now again, this is all about the subject matter. Obviously from a technical standpoint, this is an important film. From a technical standpoint, it's quite fantastic. But again, the story, a song of two humans, I mean, have some respect. Next again, this film has grown on me. I used to kind of think it was okay, but it has grown on me. Again, I give it like 4 out of 5, so this video is not about slagging off films. This is just about classics that I like, or rather than absolutely adore. Chinatown, again, as I said, it has grown on me. John Huston is just one of the great slimy villains of all time. Again, beautifully mounted, and certainly watching it again on a big screen certainly has boosted it in my eyes, because I kind of went through a period of loving Jack Nicholson to a point, and then kind of having enough of Jack Nicholson, and then I'm kind of at the stage of knowing there's good Nicholson and bad Nicholson, and this is great Nicholson, but again, it certainly wouldn't be in my favourite 100 films of all time. But this is just an exercise in how different we all are. Again, I'm probably going to upset more people, but Terrence Malick's Badlands, again, for me, it's a very good film, but again, I just don't see the classic status. Now, good friend Chris Mohan recently put up a video with Lady Jane Books discussing this film, and this will probably come as no surprise. Hitchcock's Vertigo. Again, I have it. Everybody loves it. But I just think it's solid. Yes, I have an issue with Hitchcock, that perhaps my bias is too much to overcome, and if I was watching this and it was directed by Nicholas Ray or something like that, maybe I would feel differently, even though if Nicholas Ray directed it, it would be better. No, this is I love James Stewart. I love Kim Novak. It's a good solid film. But I will agree that maybe my thoughts about Hitchcock just being a solid technician, does bias me, but I love Dial M for Murder and The Wrong Man, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But his big films kind of just leave me cold, and I get it. We're built on this culture of Hitchcock's amazing, Spielberg's amazing. But this is just, it's your own personal, and that's the great thing about art. It's your own personal feelings towards a film, and again, films over time, as you change, your opinion of them changes as well. And who knows, maybe when I'm older and start losing my marbles, I might think Vertigo's a masterpiece. But for me, it's not. Um, Obviously, the last three kind of sight and sound number ones, greatest film of all time, The Godfather, Vertigo, and Citizen Kane. I wouldn't say any of them are the greatest film of all time. I haven't seen Jan Dielman. I will at some point. But yeah, again, Vertigo for me is a good film. Stranger in a Strange Land, that's an Iron Maiden song. Strangers in a Train, Rope, North by Northwest, these are all good, enjoyable films. Rebecca, but I just don't see any of them as, the greatest films of all time. But again, this is just personal. Next up, Fred Zinnemann's High Noon. Again, one of the classic American westerns. That's actually better without the belly band. That's a nice image. Again, solid, but when you've seen as many westerns as I have, High Noon, even though it's influential and does have a Lee Van Cleef performance, let's not forget. There's so many westerns better. I could probably think about 50 westerns that you're probably better off watching than High Noon. But again, it's kind of mainstream Hollywood western, so it gets all the love. Now, we mentioned Italian cinema before, and again, I have a limited view of Fellini. 8.5 to me has an amazing start, an amazing end, and a fairly fallow middle. And La Strada, again, it's a good film, but this is another one that appears as one of the classics of cinema. Just didn't get it. Anthony Quinn's character was too much on the scale of scumbaggery, and I don't think the ending is really that profound. But again, I have no taste, as we've established in this video. Next, The Wicker Man, the classic British horror. Again, I like it. I like it a lot more than I used to. There's so many other kind of strange British horror films that I prefer. But again, this has grown on me as well, a bit like Chinatown. But I still don't see the, perfection and classic status of this film. Edward Woodward's finest ever, and again, another wonderful Christopher Lee performance. But again, this is still a very good film. This is not a bad film. Again, none of these films I'm going to throw in the bin or anything. We're back to Italy, and probably knew this was coming as well. Laventura, Antonioni, even though I do like The Passenger a lot, and I do love Lanotti. But Laventura, again, really wonderful opening section. And yes, this isn't a film about narrative drive. None of Antonioni's films really are about narrative drive. Maybe Blow Up, perhaps. Some films you just take the journey and you're happy to drift and flow. But maybe I wasn't in the right mood, but I did find this a bit annoying in its drift and flow. But again, good film. No, I will not be getting rid of it. I will be watching it again. I've still got Red Desert to watch. I'm looking forward to Red Desert. But maybe my Italian classicism is leaning more towards the kind of political filmmakers rather than the more art house, profound filmmakers. And next, seeing it's Halloween, I didn't actually plan this in the pile, but Halloween with John Carpenter, yes, this is important. You could argue maybe if it didn't exist, we wouldn't have all these slasher films, some of them better than others. But certainly for a low budget film, I mean, this is seminal. I think up until the Blair Witch Project, this was the highest grossing low budget film of all time, or something. Again, it's a good film, but there's just not that much to it. Obviously, you love the widescreen, you love the lingering floating camera. But again, I've just never been a huge fan of Halloween or this film. But it's a good film, I won't be getting rid of it. Is it one of Carpenter's best? For me, it's not. Is it one of my favourite Carpenters? No. But again, still a good film, and certainly important in the history of cinema. Now, before I upset even more people, I think I'll quit while I'm only getting huge amounts of abuse. But again, this video is not about I hate all these films. Far from it. This is about just some classics that I like rather than adore. But I'm sure, hopefully you'll all put comments, not just bashing my taste, but providing some of your examples of classic films that you like but you're not really completely in love with. You know, you're not going to be buried with a copy of that film. So please do leave your comments of which classic films you're not that big a fan of, even though you do like them. So this isn't classic films that you just can't stand and you don't have. These are classic films that you do own, you do have in the collection, but you like them rather than love them. So thanks very much for watching. Don't shout at me too much. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell